Hello and welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name's Tim Held. This week we have Chris from Raw Yaw Media on the show, and we're going to get to that momentarily. I've been debating whether or not I wanted to talk about this on the show. I don't really know why I would, but I feel compelled to. But my mom actually went in for some routine surgery on Friday, and she was supposed to be in and out. She was supposed to be able to go home the next day, and she's had some complications since, and yeah, she's in pretty rough shape and a lot of things going wrong. So she's going to be in the hospital for a bit, and we're kind of still it's not clear on how it's all going to turn out. So, if I seem a little low energy throughout this intro, then that's why. I apologize. And you might be thinking, well, why don't you just not do this episode? And I thought about it, taking some time, but I think I need to do something like this to keep my mind occupied so I don't worry too much. So yeah, I don't know why I felt like I needed to share that, but one reason I guess that it's pertinent information is if things, continue to get worse, we might be missing some PodMod episodes coming up, but I'm going to try my best to not have that happen. Yeah, so thanks for dealing with my possible oversharing. Yeah, but let's change the mood. Let's get the mood changed up a little bit. I want to play a little patch that I made on my new Novation Summit here, and because we're approaching the holidays, well, we're in the holiday season right now. I thought I would play something that sounded a little cheery and Christmassy, and also I want to use this as an opportunity to let y'all know that I'm still open to submissions for the holiday episode that'll come out around Christmas time. So yeah, if you have some holiday music that you've made, or if you want to make some, I would like to feature that on the show. If you've been listening long enough, you know that I don't really like most holiday music. And I like the holidays a lot. But, a lot of the music's kind of bad. And I want to change that. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. So let's all make some cool, weird holiday music and then weird out our relatives at our Christmas parties with it. I think that would be really fun. So yeah, here's my summit, and here's a little patch that I made. I'm gonna just play I've got an arpeggiator on, and I got the key latch on. So I think I'm just gonna do like a B major, some sort of B major inversion, and just listen to just how Christmassy this is. And never mind the guy driving his really loud truck in the background. What I really love about this right out of the box is the arpeggiator section. I'm a huge fan of arpeggios, and you have all these different, some pretty standard types of arpeggios, so you could go down to just the up. So it's just going to climb, ascending, and then you could go to descending from your highest to lowest note. So these are all pretty standard. Then there's the up and down. And then there's an up and down times 2, so I think it goes up twice and then down twice. And then, my favorite is random. This is the play version, and then the random is, like I said, my favorite. Especially if you're doing like really sprawling inversions, or mixtures of chords. For instance, why don't we do a little mix of a happy and sad, and I think it'll sound pretty Christmassy. So actually, let's do a B major with a C sharp minor and see what that does to us. And then maybe to an F sharp major, or have F sharp minor, but hold that B major still. And let's get really crazy, and now let's do our root. Let's do that with a C minor, and then play a B major up top. Getting real crazy now. But I mean, you know, it's not that Christmassy yet, right? That's what these are for. So yeah. Anyways, this synth is so much fun. It's so... What I really love about it is you can really hit the ground running right out of the box. And if you've been listening to this show long enough, then you know that's how I like that. That's a really valuable feature to me with a piece of gear, is can I just start playing it without reading the manual. If you have like a basic understanding of how, you know, desktop synths work, then you can definitely have a lot of fun. You'll do some things and you'll be like, I have no idea what's happening here. But a lot of it is pretty intuitive. So after you mess with it for a while, you'll start figuring it out. So you can go really, really far with this without reading the manual. In fact, all the voices that I've made so far, all these patches, were all made before I even cracked the manual. Tasty. Let's check this out with the arpeggiator. Oh, I didn't even get to my favorite part of the arpeggiator. So yeah, sorry. Oh, and then there's one more. There's the chord mode for the arpeggiator. But here's where it gets really cool. I'm just going to bypass the effects really quick. I'm going to turn the modulation envelope a bit up. So there is this rhythm knob for the arpeggiator. So I'll just go all the way to left. Let's see, let's turn this down. Oops, I just changed the voice. That's not what I wanted to do. Now I got to make those changes all over again. Nice, Tim. There we go. Okay. Thanks for your patience. So again, all the way, the potentiometer or knob for the rhythm is all the way to the left. So let's just turn it up a notch. And I'll just keep going through these rhythms. And of course, you know, let's go to the up and down, the up twice, down twice. It just adds a little bit of flavor to it, so it's not just, you know, your standard arpeggio. And, you know, for those of us who like to construct tracks, you know, just you know, by piece and building our own samples, and then, you know, doing the actual construction in the DAW, this is really, really useful because you could do these really cool chord progressions or arpeggios at different rhythms but within the same tempo, and then you can just like, okay, I like this, you know, I like this C minor like this, right? But let's say I want to go to my F minor or F sharp minor, you know, it's okay, it's the same thing, but if we just like recorded the F sharp minor here, and then And you can, as you can see, like with some practice, you could dial it in. But yeah, I'm just scratching the surface right now. There's so much more to learn about this thing, and I'm really excited to do that. So yeah, welcome to my summit journey. We'll be talking about this for a long time throughout the next year, because I've never mastered a piece of gear. I'm not saying I'm gonna master this, but I want to get really good at this. I want to get really proficient to where I could pull off like a whole live show with this. Not that I plan on doing that, but that would be a pretty cool skill to have. So yeah. But yeah, just such ease of changing parameters, you know, so you could do a lot of damage with this live. And I didn't even get to the effects section. I'll talk about that on a future episode. I usually don't really like when pieces of gear have built-in effects like mixers or synths, but these reverbs and delays, and there's a really nice chorus, a really cool distortion. I will show you that right now because it's fucking cool. Yeah, so that's really nice. And then the filter has an overdrive as well. But yeah, this thing's so deep, so much to get to. But yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that soon. I think I'm just going to sit here with it, though, and maybe plink on it while I do the rest of the business for the show. So first up, I'd like to say thank you to Patchworks for their continued support of Podular Modcast. If you're thinking about picking up a Summit or a Peak or any other Novation product, head over to patchworks.com, patchwerks.com. You can also get, I think you could probably get just about every module that's in this case right here, this Needham Woodworks case behind me. You could probably get those at Patchworks, patchwerks.com. And my light just went out. Shit. All right, well, I'm going to have to take a break and charge it. I'll be back. And we're back. So like I was mentioning, Patchworks, patchwerks.com. While you're there, why don't you check out their wide variety of After-Later audio modules. I would like to thank After-Later Audio for their continued support of Podular Modcast. Let's see. Let's check out another voice that I made here. I know there's... Let's see. We did this one. Oh, no, we didn't. That's pretty nice. What else is there to talk about? I mentioned the holiday tracks. I am going to still do the remix competition, so let's talk deadlines. I'm going to push the remix competition out for a while because I don't want to put too much pressure on you. Like, should I do the remix competition or the holiday track? So why don't we make the deadline for the remix competition January 15th, 2023. And then for the holiday music, let's see, what do we got here? As I'm recording this, it's December 5th. So why don't we say December 15th is a deadline. You can send your tracks to podmodcast@gmail.com. Please send WAV files if you can. What else? I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I'm just so distracted by playing this lovely synthesizer that's in front of me. I would like to thank everybody who supports the show on Patreon. I really appreciate that. It's what keeps the old LEDs blinking over here at PodMod. And if you would like to help out, head over to patreon.com/PodularModcast. Link in the show description. Something... I'm doing the video, that's new. So something new that's coming along with the video is whole extra portions of the end of the show. So I have these philosophical questions that I've been asking the guests at the end of the show. And then the show ends before they answer. Ooh, nice cliffhanger. And if you want to check that out, there's, it ranges, I've only done 3. But it ranges from 15 minutes to 30 minutes of extra content. And, if we get on a real tear and really start chewing the fat about something deep and philosophical, then, it could be a whole full-length extra episode. What else? random. I just like to randomly give stuff away over there, upload sample packs. Yeah, and it's really important to me to keep trying to get more people to join because I couldn't do the show without Patreon. So yeah, if you want more PodMod and cooler PodMod content, then head over to patreon.com/Podular Modcast. Yeah, that's about all I've got for you for intro stuff. We're going to talk to Chris from Raw Yaw Media, and he's going to do some on-the-show demos of his modules, and they're pretty mind-blowing. I'm very, very excited to get my hands on some of these. So yeah, why don't we get into that? And we're live with Chris Barth of Raw Yaw Media. Welcome back to the show. You were on a while ago, pre-pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it. That has to have been a couple years now, or we made it down to, is it like the South Park, one of the breweries around there or something?
Yeah, Seattle Light down there in South Park, and we were talking about the Lucio thing. I think where I think you were part of it was like a quad show, and I think you were doing the visuals with Nick with Allotrope IJK.
Yeah, yeah. I think we technically called that Performance Wavelength. It's kind of a cool collaboration with Modular Seattle and also Philip Kobernick. Hopefully I
Okay,
pronounced his last name right. But like
yeah,
for that, we did. Has he been on
he
the
was on
show
the show
again?
too, right? With you, like we
Yeah.
were. Yeah, that was a weird one because we were sitting down at a brewery right by a loud road.
Yeah. Yeah, but I gotta respect the field recorder lifestyle of just doing anything anywhere kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love doing that. I've done quite a few. In fact, I just saw a negative review on the podcast because I did it. I was lucky enough to get to go to Suzanne Ciani's house with Ellison from Waveform, and I just had my little field recorder, and we were sitting outside, so it wasn't the highest quality, but I was like, yeah, but it's Suzanne Ciani. Like, just get over the quality. It's fine. But
Does that
yeah.
mean you gotta go to like that sick beach house that I think they had in the Life's Waves documentary they were
Yep.
in or whatever?
Yeah.
Like,
I stood on that porch looking at that ocean, and yeah, it was so cool. She was feeding us like crab, and like she had like crab dinner the night before and had made a bunch of cookies, so we were just like hanging out. We were there for like 4 or 5 hours. I did her dishes. It was fucking crazy. She was so cool and so nice.
that's like the ultimate fanboy like
Oh,
moment. I feel
it
like
was just nuts.
I'm always
I
blown away by the legacy of Susan Ciani. Like, I think if I met her in person, I would just kind of like drop dead on the spot or something in shock, you know?
Oh, I was so nervous going up to her house, but like she just was instantly disarming because she's so kind and sweet. And yeah, I was just like sitting next to her on her piano bench while she was playing her bukla. It's just like I'm sitting in Suzanne Ciani's house right next to her while she's playing a bukla. Like what is my life? What is the world? What's happening? It was
That's
that same
crazy. I
weekend
mean,
actually, because we went to San Francisco. Um, Ellis and I Ellison and I also got to go to the Sequential Circuits office and sit in Dave Smith's office and interview him as well. That was pretty crazy.
yeah,
I've had
that
a
feels once in a lifetime. This is like you
totally,
got me all
totally,
excited, all jealous
yeah.
too at the same time.
I know this is your episode. I hate to like bogart it all with like my cool stories, but yeah, the show has definitely like doing this show has afforded me some pretty insane insane opportunities to talk to people that I never thought I would ever meet. Or yeah, it's so cool. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel like a lot of respect to just doing it. I mean, it's funny the things you can accomplish just as one person with the mindset of, well, I'll just try it and we'll see if it works. And if it doesn't, we'll learn from it. But
yeah,
some of these situations you find yourself in feel like the fates aligning correctly for you or something. Yeah.
yeah. It's I feel so lucky to. I feel there are two things like that the universe provided me. One, there was no modular podcast when I started recording episodes. And then by the time I was about to release, Mylar Melodies had started his, and I was like, oh, well, now mine's dead in the water. The Mylar's like well established and respected. But I always say thank you so much, Mylar, for not doing weekly episodes, only doing monthly. Because had he done weekly episodes, I would have been, yeah, wouldn't. But yeah, but
Uh,
yeah, we're not here to talk
y-
about that. um,
yeah.
well, I feel like when we first met and you were doing this stuff, like you weren't into modular at all. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to look back on the past couple of years and kind of the boredom with COVID and how things have completely changed in terms of interests. Because I think when I first met you, I was doing the video jockey stuff with Nick Bigelow. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks in Seattle know that guy, but we had that video jockey collective, Allotrope IJK. And it was kind of this world of just writing a lot of different software for video effects and trying to figure out a way to perform it and stuff like that. Um, and so that kind of got us plugged into the modular Seattle scene. I think Patchworks and Modular Seattle's been kind of this great creative hub for meeting a lot of like-minded people in the city and stuff. And that got us put onto a lot of different shows, a lot of different bills, like the wavelengths that you were talking about. We built some different like 3D scenes with quadraphonic audio mapping and kind of real-time visuals that would follow all of the audio sources and stuff like that. And when I first took a glimpse at modular Eurorack stuff, it's exciting to see. I like the technology, but I was always like, oh, that's really expensive. I should avoid that at all costs. Like, I'm a fan of synths, but I was already spending so much money on video gear, which is kind of in its own world of random things you just need to put on a production.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing
Also,
all of
probably
these
very
modules.
expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely expensive. I guess at this point, I don't really know which is more expensive. I think a lot of like the analog video synthesis stuff, like LZX and stuff like that, is really kind of expensive. But even just having like HDMI cables converted to SDI to do long cable runs feels like hundreds of dollars to set up correctly. So it's been this huge money pit over the years. So like
Yeah.
even go like it makes me think going into the Velocity trade show this year, I had a booth with a video set up and the night before I broke my tower PC that I was using.
Oh,
And
I
so
remember talking to you. Yeah, yeah. Fuck.
just the nightmare of live software changes tried out in the middle of a show, versus things you buy off the shelf and hope readily work. So I don't know, but that's a long rant. I'd say getting back into audio, I started going to the different modular Seattle, modular on the spot nights, and it was cool. So eventually gave into that first thought of, oh, I'll get into analog video synth Eurorack, and that seems pretty limited in terms of scope of products or things to geek out on. So naturally it trickled over into audio, and here we are today. I think I've shipped 2 different Eurorack modules at this point and have like 2 more maybe in production right now. So things have completely changed, and a lot of my time doesn't go towards video synthesis anymore, and has ended up on this Raw Yaw Media kick. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I went into Patchworks and I was chatting with Nick and, just like, show me some stuff you're excited about. And then he showed me Monolith and he
yeah,
told me that you made it. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't even know he was into modular. Now he's like making modules. So like, I guess what was that journey? Like you get into it and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I could make these. Like how did that happen? Why, like what made you want to get into it?
you know, it definitely is a product of COVID, and just a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Because I first saw like the Daisy patch. It was this thing floating around, this C++ module that you can write code for yourself, and it was like, oh, I've got a lot of free time. I wonder what it's like to actually, write oscillators, like software for oscillators and stuff like that. And so I picked up one of those modules. I think it's quickly ballooned. I might have like 9 to 10 of them at this point in time, and was just kind of getting into that world of like, oh, I've got complete custom setups. Like maybe I should start thinking about doing hardware design or actually productizing some of these things compared to just, living in my own secretive world of random software. Because I think, some different people, I'm on some different discords right now too, and folks have been pretty encouraging. So there's actually people that are trying out some different, beta firmwares I have for the patch over the COVID years and stuff like that. And now I'm just kind of at this point where we always speculated, hey, we could take this same, platform. It's a really sick open source license, kind of do whatever you feel like with it, and get it into some other product form that just feels like it hones in on what we're trying to do in Seattle, or is like kind of a cool thing for the community and stuff. And that's kind of taken a long time, but now has turned into actual hardware, so it feels pretty good at this
Yeah,
point in
that's
time.
so cool. Yeah, you have two
If you
available right now, right? An oscillator and then the monolith, which is like a pitch shifting reverb with like a DJ filter on it. And
Yeah, so Monolith is pretty cool. It's definitely like a reverb idea with a DJ filter. Like I've had what is it, the WMD Overseer for a long time, and I've always been kind of a fan of some DJ filter in the mix. And Monolith was like, oh, if I'm making a lot of digital noise and hardware stuff, and I want to just do like high pass, like long running ambient tones and things, like having a DJ filter into a reverb is pretty sick. But then on top of that, Monolith is also just like, I had this initial software idea where, I was starting to mess with pitch and just kind of learning that thought process that playback speeds can, be quantized and directly mapped to like specific pitch changes and stuff like that, like the VOC tracking thought process. And
mm-hmm.
so I was like, oh, maybe I can start writing software to do like pass through FM effects, kind of thinking this way of playback speeds and manipulating stuff. And so Monolith, in addition to having like the DJ filter and reverb, is a lot of FM processing, or you can just apply this FM pitch shifting sweeps to any arbitrary input signal, and it's been fun to use with like different vocals and stuff like that. But that's kind of the
Yeah.
basis of that module. Apologies if
Yeah.
I'm pretty long winded on this.
Oh no, that's the whole this is the forum for you to be long-winded about the stuff you're making for sure. I just watched the EasyBot video where he was putting his voice through it, and yeah, I really want to try that thing out. It looks like a lot of fun. Um, Before we get too deep into the weeds on the modules, though, something I was thinking about is like you and I have, we've hung out a few times and have talked a few times, but like I don't really know you that well. So I kind of wanted to get a little bit of your backstory. Like, are you from the Northwest? Where'd you grow up? And like, how did you find yourself like getting into, like artistic creation? I won't even say music because you kind of do so much. You do like digital art too, or painting and stuff. Is that
Yeah,
right?
do a lot of painting. I've been kind of getting into Polaroid printing, which seems like an expensive hobby, but
Yeah.
kind of a cool way to document some of the video art we've done. Um, Funny to think, but it's been a while. I guess even with painting and technology, like I love like AxiDraw plotters and stuff too, and was spending a lot of time trying to write programs to paint paintings for me, like automate everything, automate the world. But yeah, at this point, it's just kind of all over the place, and it's more, hey, what's coming up event wise, and then we figure out what we need to do, like
Yeah.
technology wise, to match it and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So wait, where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm not from the Northwest. I'm actually from Kansas City, Missouri.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah, so Midwest born and raised, pretty much grew up in Kansas City all of my like childhood, adolescence, and then I ended up moving to Chicago for a while to go to school and was living in the city there for maybe like 5 or 6 years. And then moved out this way to Seattle, kind of following the tech crowd or various corporate tech jobs, and been in Seattle now, I think 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
I don't know. It's all a blur. Like you look
Yeah.
back on those years, and I don't even couldn't think what I was doing like a month ago, let alone
Yeah.
seven
Right.
years
I
ago.
know that. Yeah. Yeah. I know that story, man. Like I keep saying, like, yeah, my wife and I just bought a house, but like it's been over a year. But It's weird. I feel like we just moved in, but I also feel like I've lived here forever. Same thing with the podcast. I'm going on 5 years, but that just look when I say that out loud, it's like, what? How the fuck is that possible? But yeah, and it's just like as you
Yeah.
get older, time just becomes more blurry and faster, and yeah,
But yeah. Yeah, so I've been out in Seattle for a while, specifically for like the tech scene, like the corporate tech scene out here rocks. If you want the big bucks and the fancy jobs and stuff, and I think also I've just been really enjoying like some of the tech scene here, some of like the 3D development that's going on for all of the game companies in Bellevue or like some of the other big name tech companies too. So it's been like a really cool city, in my opinion. I mean, Chicago, nothing against it. I think I was too young to be living in a city at that time because I wasn't really 21. And it was kind of a weird, gray area of, well, what are you supposed to do when you're irresponsible and you can't really go to the irresponsible places and stuff. Whereas
yeah,
like Seattle's been this nice thing with all the different venues like Kremwork and Timber Room and like Monkey Loft and all this DJ crews in
hmm,
town too. There's just so much to do here. So
yeah.
many events going on all the time.
Yeah, really strong electronic scene here, and I'm just like so endlessly thankful to Tom and Cindy from Patchworks, and then Bradley and Josh getting Modular on the Spot and Modular Seattle going, and just kind of like I I had friends that were kind of all over who maybe didn't know each other who I'd met through like playing various gigs at, and now like everybody knows everybody, and it just feels really coalesced and really open and enthusiastic, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like Patrick's is even on like subsequent waves of new people. Like even just over the past couple of years, it feels like there's fresh faces coming in there all the time, and
Totally,
um,
yeah.
like
Yeah, I feel
and
like once
like
they got
Matt
that
or
new shop, and like after they got the new shop, and like once like COVID restrictions let up, the last few times I've gone in there, and there's like 10 people, and I'm like, I don't know any of you. And then I've got to meet like Jesse and Connie and Matt, and like just there are like so many cool people there. It's I'm sorry if I left your name out. I don't want to sit here and just like name every Patchworks employee, but um yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
great place.
yeah. I really like. I don't think I would have gotten to Eurorack if that shop hadn't existed. To be honest, like just such an expensive barrier to entry. Not really a
Yeah.
ton of places to try things out, but that in the city's been awesome. And I think the other thing that cracks me up is all these people you're listing off too are now turning into all like awesome electronic music performers in the city. So it's just
Totally.
like almost this breeding ground for artistry too. Like I don't know if
Uh-huh.
it's the Patchworks employee discount or something, or how people are like ending up in these spaces and so successful. But like it's
Uh,
more and more shows now. Like so much to
yeah.
go see, so many people trying to put on stuff. It's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, like Basement State is like in full effect, and yeah, so much cool stuff. And I'm sure you being like pretty good buds with Nick Bigelow, that probably didn't help or hurt you getting into getting into this expensive hobby.
Yeah, Nick is definitely a gear king.
Yeah.
I'll give him some credit because he's a lot better at flipping things. Like, if he's tired of something, he'll actually move off it and doesn't just hold on to a lot of stuff that, collects dust in his house. Whereas
Hmm.
I'm kind of the opposite, a real hoarder. And so I have just tons of modules now that sit in drawers that aren't even in cases. And I stare at it and I'm like, oh, I should probably sell these, or maybe I should just try and give them away to people in the community. But I don't know. For now, it's
Yeah.
just all clutter all the time, and I'll
Yeah.
embrace it and tell myself that in a couple months I'll still be using all these things. I don't know.
All right. Well, it's a double-edged sword because like I'm I'm always wheeling and dealing, always trying to trade and stuff like that because I like to try stuff out, and then but there are a handful of modules that I like got rid of before I knew what I was doing, and now I'm like, I shouldn't have got rid of that because like I don't make enough money to buy modules. So like luckily people like send me stuff to demo, and then I just like, I just have a good like rotation of being able to trade with people and stuff. But yeah, I think there's definitely, it is weird because like you're saying like, well, I could give these away, like something that I did a little bit ago, and something that I want to do in the future as I get more modules piling up, is just like do giveaways. And because it is so expensive, like another thing I like fantasize about is just like, well, if I hoard them now, maybe I can actually start my own synth library. Um, or like
Yeah.
build cases to let people use to like for like some sort of what do they call those, like a residency type thing or something like that. But
Yeah, that all sounds awesome. I mean, I think I've thought through some of the logistics on that, and I don't think I pay close enough attention to the things I let people borrow to ever assume anything will come back. But I think the residency setup or something that, like, where you've got a studio and everything is just self-contained. It's like, show up here, use it, leave, don't take it with you. Maybe that would be more successful. I don't know.
yeah, well, I mean, it's just
Sounds
like,
cool though.
yeah, well, it'd be, being down here in Tacoma, and just like with the economic, like the class division that's just keeps widening and everything. It's like it just bums me out that your socioeconomic status can affect so much of the tools that you have available for your creativity. And I know that like scarcity can breed innovation, but also it's like it would be cool to like set something up where, like some younger people can come in and just like try stuff out, and if they want to make music with it, like think of some sort of lending um program where they could
Yeah,
borrow it for a month and create something and help them promote that, and hope maybe they can like play a show and get some money so they could actually buy their own setup or something like that. But this is all like pie in the sky dream. If the podcast ever like became like my job and my only job, then I could have time to do something like that. So speaking of, visit patreon.com. Um, uh,
yeah.
but yeah, no,
I feel like
I get you.
Well, I mean, today's dreams are tomorrow's success stories, right? So it's just
Yeah,
you got to put together the actual feasible plan of like here's the residency or something. Maybe it's just a shed in your backyard or something to start out. I don't
right.
know,
There's
but
actually this little so I live in the neighborhood, a neighborhood called Fern Hill, and like the downtown Fern Hill is literally like a half of a block, and there's like a couple restaurants and like a but there's this storefront. There's this little tiny white building that's sitting empty. It's been empty the whole time I've been here, and I'm like, how cool would it be to like make like a little like synth library that also like had like movie nights where you like played cool movies and like had coffee or something, just some sort of like place people could go for like culture and stuff. So that's kind of like something that
yeah.
like if I ever become financially solvent, that's something I would really like to do.
Well, rooting for you.
Yeah, thanks,
I
man.
don't know like how long or how far out any of that stuff is, but all of it
Yeah,
sounds cool.
I don't
That's
know.
like on my end. Sometimes I dream of moving back to Kansas City or something, just because I think the cost of living would be cut in half, and some of those spaces I think would be a lot easier to fund or actually find, like
Hmm.
retail leases that don't make you cry, kind of thing.
Right? Yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
don't
that's why
know.
we ended up in Tacoma. Like, my wife at the time worked for the city of Seattle, and we couldn't afford to buy. There's no way we could have bought like we could have maybe afforded like a small condo or a townhouse, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, but down here we have a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a two outbuildings and a yard, and it's like, oh yeah, like way more. The money
yeah.
goes a lot further down here. um,
Yeah, I wonder from time to time, like if Seattle is at this point where it becomes too expensive, and not to say that like the city sprawl doesn't become just as popular as something, but maybe some of the main venues you'd care about in the heart of the city just are irrelevant, and people are going to more random suburbs or places that they don't expect to be for some of these things. Because
yeah,
I don't know. Like I feel
I
like there's been a
yeah.
slew of a lot of different DIY spaces here lately that we've been seeing close. Like some of our favorite dive bars, like Victory Lounge and stuff, that
Victory
host a lot of
closed.
local bands. It's on its last breath. If you need to go, it's done into the month, so
Oh
into
fuck, that
December.
sucks. Oh,
Yeah,
what's the event space that they do right next door?
I think there's the Black Lodge that is some sort of youth practice space, or maybe not youth, but DIY practice space. And then Lo-Fi is right next to there too, and it's had a lot of cool,
Yeah.
different like electronic setup nights. I
I
think
played a
Lo.
show at
Go
Lo-Fi
ahead.
once to
Yeah.
the other people that were playing the show with me and the the bartender, and then a girl that I was talking to on Tinder showed up for like 20 minutes of it.
Oh, these are the success
Right?
stories.
Yeah, this was pre-modular. Actually, I've played there twice, but yeah, it's a great little. They got that like space in the back too. That's I like that. But that sucks about Victory. Victory is a cool place.
Yeah, so things are changing. I don't know. There's probably for every victory, there's probably three things that have tried to replace it, but all
Yeah,
polished up and not as like homey divey that everybody likes. I don't know. We'll see
yeah.
how it pans out. But like even thinking about lo-fi, that entire block of those three like venues or bars, whatever you consider them, has had like a rough couple of years because I don't know if it was this year or last year, but a car just blasted into the side of lo-fi and they had to cancel a lot
Oh,
of shows. I remember
oh
because
shit.
just like a random collision happened and it took out the whole front wall.
Oh, that
But
sucks. Well, that's also a weird. Now we're getting really like into the details of Seattle geography, but it's in like a weird neighborhood, being so close to like um like Westlake area and stuff is like that's getting a lot more affluent down there and stuff. And I really, I'm not just saying this because I moved down here and because I had to move down here, but I really do think that Tacoma is going to be the place for more like cool and esoteric art and culture. Because it's like it surprised me. Like
yeah,
I love Tacoma. I think it's a badass town. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, and it just seems like, yeah, I think it's on the up and up. And I want to. That's one of the reasons I want to try to do like some sort of library or event space or something. I think that would be so cool.
yeah.
But
Well, again, rooting for you. I want to see
yeah,
it
thanks,
happen.
thanks.
Maybe I could even hold you accountable. I'll ask you in a week how it's
Yeah, yeah,
going.
right. Well, I think I need more than a week, but yeah, maybe by next year this time, be like, do you have a business plan set up yet? But I mean, I got to make the podcast like successful in the way that I need it to be first. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, if you turn
Uh,
into this huge Tacoma fanboy, I think I only have one other question. Did you grow up watching Hey Arnold?
I did. I was like, just like, I think I was just getting like to the age where the Nickelodeon type like cartoons and stuff. I think I was just aging out by Hey Arnold, but I definitely watched like probably the first like season or two in middle
Yeah, because I
school.
I think I learned the other day that the entire setting of Hey Arnold is actually based on Tacoma.
No shit.
And if you look at it, like some of the buildings and stuff, and I think there's a lot of just random overpasses over like residential areas in the show. I think it adds up. Like
Oh my
maybe that is
god.
where the creator was from or something.
Like I feel like I can't even wait till after we're done. I have to Google this right now. Hey Arnold Tacoma, that would be so cool. Um
I could be completely wrong, but I'll just claim it on this and say it's completely right.
Let's see. Hillwood is the city where Arnold lives and where most events take place. It is located in Washington state, as revealed in the episode Road Trip, and evidence throughout other episodes. The city's name is never explicitly said in the show, but it's blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it looks like it's kind of like, well, I don't need to read this whole article, but Hillwood would make sense because, like, um, what is it? There's Hilltop, which was like
Yeah,
and the neighbor like one of the big neighborhoods here. But welcome to
yeah,
two nerds discuss Washington geography. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm bummed that it didn't work out for you to come down, but I would like you to come down and check out the studio, and maybe we could go check out Tacoma if you haven't seen it much, because there's some pretty cool little pockets. It's definitely a cool
yeah.
space.
I'd like to get you like a skiff too to try out some of these modules. So
Oh
I'll
yeah,
figure
me
something
too.
out. Just kind of the dilemma today. If you go outside and you look at your car, you're like, "Oh, this tire's completely flat. I don't really want to drive an hour and pray that
Right?
it doesn't
Yeah,
explode on
yeah,
the way."
totally. Well, we figured it out. So yeah, let's see. So you start making these modules, because you're just like bored, and you have the underlying skills to be able to write these codes and stuff. So like Monolith, the first one, um, like
Yeah.
what was like why all that functionality in one thing, and like was there like a module that you were using and you were like, oh, I kind of wish I like this module, but I kind of wish it also did this, or like what was like the inspiration for like putting all these functions together into one thing?
You know, I've used a lot of different delay effects or different reverb effects over the years. Um, I'm not going to claim that Monolith is the best performance tool. I think
Uh,
it's more just, hey, let's see what kind of weird ambient spaces you can create, or more like sound design for 3D worlds or something. Like, hey, like how do you just get an ambient wall going and let it ride and just have that in the background all day?
mm-hmm,
Because I think one of the things about Monolith, like the FM processor, like processing step, it was something that I felt was really interesting. Like the reverb and DJ filter could maybe be called add-ons to that, as just an initial idea of like how could this be used in a performance context. But as I've used it more, like I find it being something that just, if you leave it out of sync with like main clocks in, or it doesn't map directly to your tempo of what you're doing, you get some really crazy just sways and ambient tones that like sound completely unintentional, or like almost like you're messing up a performance that I really like.
mm-hmm,
Like getting into that space of, hey, this clearly sounds like someone physically made this, versus it sounds like some sort of cookie cutter machine learning generated, wave file, is one of the exciting things I find in Monolith. Because there's like a lot of hacky development choices or things that, if you talk to real DSP nerds, they'd be like, why the hell are you doing it that way? That's like a terrible choice. Or maybe
uh-huh.
generate some additional poppiness, or like doesn't handle aliasing of different frequencies correctly. And it's just like, well, I don't care about that. I want to make something that sounds like just like this weird world of sounds that you collected with a field recorder one time and you'll never get them again, kind of thing.
That's
But
I mean that's for me, that's kind of like the spirit of modular in a lot of ways. Like I like everything that you just said. Like when somebody says like, yeah, I kind of did it all like the way you're not supposed to, and people who do this, like for big audio companies or something would like shake their head at me, and that's like the stuff that I would be like, oh well, I want to try that out before I try out the, you know like the most well engineered perfectly, like that. I'm so much more drawn to something like that. So, and I think that ripples throughout the modular scene. And so many developers aren't, they started doing, I've talked to so many people who I was sure are electrical engineers, and it's like, no, they just started circuit bending stuff, and then they learned how to do this stuff, either writing code or building circuits, just so they could make the thing that they wanted to make. And so there was way more of an emphasis on learning like the fundamentals, and more of an emphasis on, I just want to like make something that's super unique and weird. And you know, music technology has been around for a long time, and like it's hard to reinvent the wheel. And I think a lot of the times you have to make like a fucking wheel that is super clunky to make it unique. And
yeah,
I like that,
yeah, yeah, the clunky wheel. Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. I just subscribe to the idea of bad ideas only. Like you should only make things that like a big company would never want to rip off. Like you got to figure out how to make something that Behringer would be like, I want nothing to do with recreating that. So that's the inspiration for the monolith. I mean, that's kind of the inspiration for all of them thus far. I started out with that reverb and was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, nice sound effect. I like it. Like, let's build a full system. And so
Hmm.
that's been like the trickle out of like dizygote as an oscillator is more a product of like, oh, I need a sound source to, feed into monolith to actually start doing just like a full soundscape of my own. And
Hmm.
I've got this other one that I've been working on too, called Taurus. I don't know if that'll be the name when it gets released. It's seeming that way, but that's another one where it's like, oh, I bought a Tascam like tape recorder to do like dubs to tape, and was like, this sucks. I hate this setup. Like, can I just get a Eurorack module that's like maybe causes just as many problems with like the sound quality, or like cuts things up weirdly, and make something with that? And so, I mean,
So
I don't
is it going
know.
to be like, is that like a sampler that you record direct into and has like some sort of tape emulation, or?
I wouldn't say it has tape emulation. I can actually play some sounds through it today. It's hooked up in this skiff I've got here, but it's supposed to be a step sequencer sampler. So it's like it's got different sample buffers that you can record, like maybe four different parts, and you can do pattern chaining of those parts. But the main thing I was focused on is just having a pass through sampler kind of setup that's clock synced, so that you've got like your sequencer is something driving your whole system, and how can you use that global clock off your sequencer to then drive a sampler, and then live recut different sounds and do different manipulations of sounds, like whether reversing different notes and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like a performance sampler in that sense, but not like the traditional, hey, send a gate signal in to the sound you want to play. It's like, hey, no, this is specifically for overdubbing, and it's more like an effect that's going to be applied to your signal in the background as you just tear up what you recorded and stuff like that.
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
another one of those things that's like a bad ideas only, or like things that you're like, this is what I want to do in Ableton after I record something. Why can't I just do it in a live performance?
Yeah, yeah. So like, are you like still like beta testing it yourself, or are you like so I mean, obviously you said it's not like done or out yet. Is it not out because you're just kind of waiting to like get the production going, or is it not out because you're still figuring out exactly what you want it to be and how it to work?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some different hardware changes I've made. It's not out because the software is incomplete, or like some of the
Okay.
things are like, that's a rough edge that wouldn't really make sense to hand to someone and say good luck. Versus, I've got some things to fix on my end still,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
thinking about like timelines, or just the whole aspect of Raw Yaw Media and stuff, this was an idea that I had probably at the beginning of COVID, and I think I've been through five different hardware prototypes of this at this point in time.
Hmm.
And finally, it's like, yeah, this is good enough. I just need to like ship it and throw it over the wall and not think about it anymore.
Yeah.
So that day is rapidly approaching, and I think kind of beginning of next year, a couple of things for production to still figure out, but have kind of got line of sight now to actually getting this into people's hands, because I've handed out some demos to different folks I've met over Discord this year, and have gotten some different feedback, and at least have gotten thumbs up of like, yeah, you should make that a product, even if it won't sell. We'll see.
Yeah,
It's more
yeah.
enough excitement to be like, yeah, I would probably use this one time at least. And it's like, well, that's my quality bar, so let's do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of yeah, just like multiple iterations and everything, like, I working with After Later, I the Bleep Bloop 2000, that module that
Yeah,
we released with
yeah,
my dumb face on it. Well, that was like a joke module. I mean, it is fun, and it's kind of, it's weird and interesting, but like it's just way too big for what it is. So like we only did 100 of them, but this is the first iteration of my next module. But like
oh yeah,
I can't just like I was trying to explain it to Lenny, and he's like, draw it out for me. And then when I was like trying to, like, I couldn't like get the inspiration and motivation to draw it, but I was just recently getting into painting. So I just like
yeah,
did a painting of it, now it's totally different than what this painting is. But
yeah,
yeah, I know how that goes. Like we just got our second or third prototype in this just like last week, and we haven't even built it yet. But I'm just like, I think it's done, and I'm so excited for it. I hope it is. I hope it's done. Um, but yeah, I'll tell you
yeah.
what it is when we're done recording.
Okay, yeah, would love to hear about it. It's kind of an interesting world. I've worked in software a long time, but haven't really done a ton with hardware, or have done like big corporate hardware projects where they have these evaluation builds that come in, and you're like, this feels like the final product. I don't understand what we're evaluating here. Whereas with your stuff, like something show up is like, well, none of this works. And back to the drawing boards, or
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
let's
totally.
redo these schematics entirely. But I don't know. We're living in crazy times that you can submit like PCB manufacturing, like Gerber files to China companies and or Chinese companies, and then within like 2 weeks have things completely produced and at your door.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
imagine having been some of like the pioneers of the air space that actually had to learn like product development skills or like how to actually find manufacturers and stuff versus all of these off the shelf, just like one click away websites nowadays that make it
yeah.
so easy.
Yeah. Once you like kind of like I'm not keyed into it because I'm not like a I come up with the ideas, but I don't know how to make circuits or anything, or source parts. But like Lenny has really figured that out, and yeah, it's amazing. Like just how like rather than like breadboard it, it's like, well, I'm just gonna like draw it out and in Eagle or whatever dip trace or whatever I'm using, and like it's so cheap to get a couple PCBs sent and it only takes X amount of time. Like I might as well just like send me the module made and I'm going to try it out, and then if it doesn't
Yeah.
work, well, it's not that big of a deal. But, so yeah, if anybody out there listening wants to get into it, there are definitely avenues to like start, prototyping your own stuff and figuring it out.
Yeah. For anyone that listens to this, if they have any questions, they can ping me directly on Instagram and I'll copy and paste the cheat sheet that I've put
There you
together
go.
for people that are trying to do this in terms of just like dimension details for construction or different places to try sourcing things like faceplate manufacturers and stuff. More than happy
Hmm.
to share that with anyone. I mean, in
Yeah.
one sense, working on all these different things, they're trying to release all these different products and having no business plan that makes any sense on my end. Like just being able to share the information is kind of the biggest win.
Yeah, and that's again, that's part of the whole Eurorack community, like the modular community worldwide. Where everybody's all like everybody talks about it almost every episode it comes up. So I think listeners are probably nauseated by it, but it's just like such an open, welcoming community that people do share stuff like that. Even manufacturers like that are technically like each other's competition, like share stuff all the time. And yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all analog circuit designs that we know and love are probably beyond the scope of any patent protection at this point in time. So you can do anything you feel like.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just find these little pieces and then like put them all together, and yeah. Well, so we're already like 40 minutes in. We're ripping through this. Do you want to like start walking us through some of the sounds and some of the modules, and let us get to know them a little better?
Sure.
I also want to say thank you to Board Brain. I've been really enjoying this injector that they sent me here. It's a great way to get your guitar or even this. I did use the Novation to get your line level stuff up to Euro levels, but it also has a built-in envelope follower and gate generator, so you can generate your signals from your guitar to create a clock or whatever you want to do. So what I've been doing a lot is trying to make like a wah wah pedal. I talked about this last week, and I posted a video the other day using the injector with my guitar and then hitting the 4MS shaped dual envelope VCA, which I think is going to be available. It's going to be released this week or next week. I think it's the 10th. I'll have to double check on that, but I'll put a link in the show description. But this thing is super, super cool. We talked about it quite a bit on the episode before last with Dan Green from 4MS. But I'm using the envelopes out of that I'm triggering with the injector to mess with the cutoff time or the cutoff values on the Razor, which is the 1-to-1 mutable blades filter clone that ALA just released, After Later Audio, and then using the Kamaniac phaser and of course the Nautilus delay from Qubit and the Aurora, and then I'm using the Board Brain EQ5, which I've talked about a lot lately and really, really dig that. It's just a really nice thing to have on the end of your chain to, take out any, especially like with guitar, removing some hum, or just, if you have like a big, broad stereo mix, it's nice to just get in there. Like 5 bands is pretty good, especially for a really big stereo mix. You can just, minor little tweaks, and then you can get your, your track recorded well, or it even would be pretty great in a live situation. That way you could like, get something going and go out on the floor and listen and, kind of take some mental notes. All right, yeah, I should probably duck this frequency down a little bit. So you could like tune your mix frequency wise to your surroundings. So yeah, thank you to Board Brain for that. Also, I've got the shuffling clock multiplier, the new one that 4MS just released. So it's the same thing as the old version with the expander, but it's just one module. And if you want to just turn one simple gate, just like a steady gate, into like all these crazy multiplied but rhythmic gate sequences, and then all sorts of really fun modulation to kind of mess with those, then look no further than the shuffling clock multiplier. They've also got the smaller versions of the envelope VCA. I think there are 3 different versions, and those will all be out, I think, around the same time. And then the new mini peg, which I'd really like to try out, is basically their pingable envelope generator, which is like a legendary module. Now they've got it's like half of it, but it's maybe a third of the size, or yeah, it's pretty small, so nice and compact. Also, just want to give one more shout out to my friends at Recovery Effects. They got the Mystic. This thing is super fun, and I believe those are available now, and I think they ship at the end of the week if you've bought one. Yeah.
So I've got this small little skiff. Kind of the 3 black modules across the top are Raw Yaw Media specific stuff.
On the yellow with the red, the products that you can buy don't have that. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is actually just the custom builds I've been doing for myself, selling modules just to get modules for myself for free kind of setup. But yeah, I like this yellow, like primary color, Buchla-esque vibe with the Rogan knobs.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah, a lot of the design language I've been trying to stick to for these modules is more like Bauhaus influenced, or sticking to kind of primary colors. And so this is what we've ended up with. But it feels like the red, blue, and yellow, since they're all primary, don't really contradict that design language. And it's been kind of nice to just tinker with different parts and see what looks cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Well, thanks. And yeah, so in this top row, we've got like Monolith, which we talked a lot about already on the podcast. And to the right of that is Dizygo, which is, a 2 sound oscillator. I guess it could be called 2 voices. You can play the sounds at the same time, or you can toggle between them.
Okay.
We'll listen to that in a second. But then to the right of that is this Taurus module, which is kind of this pass-through sampler that we were talking about too. But I'll go ahead and just kick off like a simple loop with a sequencer off to the side that'll play into this Dizygo, because Dizygo has a built-in envelope, and that envelope actually CV out. So if you want to have the envelope drive different filters and stuff in your just kind of signal path, that can be pretty cool. But
wait, so you can send in an envelope and then pass that through, so the envelope affects the oscillator but can just pass through the module?
No, so it has a built-in envelope. So like you send a trigger signal, and yeah. So
and what triggers that? Is there a trigger in, or is it triggered by the oscillator?
Yeah, so there's a trigger in for the oscillator that'll kick off that envelope. So it's basically just an envelope shaped to the oscillator, so it feels like a cohesive voice or something.
Okay.
Pretty simple, but the other takeaway is if you have like a gate signal and you don't want to use it for any of the sounds, you can actually just generate an envelope CV signal and use that to modulate different stuff. So kind of that world of like, how many outputs can you put on a module in addition to inputs, so that it keeps modulating things further down the line. And I kind of felt like the envelope shape was a good one to have output, just to drive filters and stuff, since it's a digital oscillator and things like that. But
before
it's also kind of cool
on,
to do some self patching. Yeah.
Will you just like with your hand like show us like outline each module, because it's kind of hard to tell. It might just because my connection's bad, but like where's the border between each one?
Yeah, so on the left here is the Monolith. There's kind of a division here down the center. This middle one is Dizygo. So Monolith is 14 HP, Dizygo is 10 HP here, and Taurus is looking like it's going to be 16 HP. Taurus is the sampler, like step sampler stuff. But yeah, and so if you look here, like we've got the CV out of the Dizygo, I'll plug for a second, that you can kind of watch. We've got a button to trigger different stuff on here.
Oh, cool.
You can mess with like envelope lengths and stuff, or put it into just always playing oscillator sound sort of stuff.
Nice. So you don't need a VCA with Dizygote because it's
Yeah,
got the envelope and VCA in there.
yeah, like it's definitely influenced by rings. I'm a big fan of rings, or
Okay.
just any of the different modules that have these built-in. I guess rings maybe isn't considered an envelope because it's some sort of like, what would that be considered? Just like timbre decay sort of thing. Whereas this
Right.
is just like, a
Well,
VCA traditional
like
envelope shape.
Elements then, because like Elements has a built-in envelope that you can shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe it's kind of weird to say, but I'm very anti VCA. Like, I just
Okay.
don't like them. Like, controversial take. The
That's
VCA is my
that is a
least
very hot
favorite
take.
module of all time. Yeah, I feel like everyone talks about it so much. Is like, oh, I love it for attenuation stuff, and it's like, well, I don't like VCAs at all. So keep them out. But yeah, so Dizygote here has like a button to trigger, so you can just kind of play along, or just see what shape of envelope you have and stuff. And then it's got this other button here to switch between different voices. But I'll start out on this first voice just so folks can listen. So you can hear that
Yep.
pretty well. So it's just
Yeah.
a traditional square shape, but so dizygote is kind of this idea of fraternal twins or two different sound sources. The first one is FM synthesis, so it's just like square wave FM synthesis. It's got this mod effect, which is kind of like the FM modulation amount.
Okay.
And so it gets into these like really 8-bitty sounds of like, here these different kind of like organ stop based modulation amounts. So these quantized frequencies that sound pretty good. But then you can mess with the actual FM frequency of the modulator signal,
Oh, nice.
which gets into like really gritty sounding, kind of just, I don't know. It doesn't feel like you're trying to play melodic things. You're just trying to make like drum sounds or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's the
Yeah,
first
so that
voice.
could easily be a drum voice too with that built-in envelope.
Yeah, yeah. And it's got like a pretty short envelope length, so you can do more like
Very cool.
different sounds and stuff. But then the dizygote second voice is like a sine wave phase modulation based sound.
Okay.
It's kind of thinking in that world of like, hey, if you're gonna make a digital oscillator, why would anyone want one? And for FM synthesis, having stuff that's like quantized pitch shifts, like that 8-bitty sound was kind of cool. But having phase modulation for a sine wave is pretty nice too. So look at that modulation. So you can hear that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Oh, what?
it's into like real crazy phase modulation sound territory.
Yeah, wow.
And all of this is in stereo. Like, I know people don't like really thick stereo mixes sometimes, but this is just as thick as it comes. And I figured if anyone doesn't like it, they can just fix it in a stereo mixer, like mess with panning and stuff. Like, I really like this Verbo scan and pan, and so I use that sometimes if it sounds too wide to just kind of make it a bit more mono.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so these sounds are like two separate. You can play them separately, kind of thing. But the other thing about it is they're supposed to be played together, and you get really weird, rich sounds for having the FM synthesis stacked on top of the phase modulation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's just messing with like the modulation amount of the FM synthesis and the phase modulation amount too.
Yeah, this seems like a very fun module to actually like play. Like not just have the CV play it, but like in a performance setting, like you can be hands-on and interactive with it.
Yeah, having like a little button that you can press is pretty fun. I think also too doing things that are like self-modulating is kind of entertaining. So we'll listen to just
Totally.
the like square wave by itself with the envelope shape out. So you hear that like you actually get like sweeping stuff.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Oh, we can listen. But just some different sounds, self-modulating, not a ton going on, just kind of taking off the envelope with the button on it and stuff. But you can hear
So
like
this is all coming from dizygote. There's no like external modulation happening. This is all built in right now that we're hearing.
Yeah. So that's the built-in envelope, just repatched into like the different CVs for these modulation frequency knobs and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
so it lets
Can you
you
go
just
into
like,
LFO rate? Can you get it down to LFO to use it as a modulation source?
I don't think I've capped it, but I'm not 100% sure. Could you take
Okay.
another look at it? Because the FM stuff, the FM one actually sounds kind of nice when you get into that low frequency territory or that like LFO modulation amount. But I don't really think that the phase modulation would sound as good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I don't have any other great modulation stores on here. Let's take a look at this.
Well, because I'm just like this is kind of reminding me a little bit of the Schlappy Engineering 3 body, like a smaller version with 2 instead of 3 oscillators, but like it's got all sorts of cross modulation for FM and phase, and yeah, and it gets pretty wild.
Yeah. All for anything that can self-modulate and do anything crazy just on its own. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do like the LFO stuff, but I think there is kind of a thought process of for a continuous path or like a continuous control voltage signal across like what frequency spectrum you want to be manipulatable. Um, and so it kind of bottoms out more in this. It's almost like too slow at a certain point. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you know what? In the development of this, one thing that I was looking at, and I'm not 100% sure on the modulation frequency if this is the case, was this envelope shape does not have an attenuverter and is pretty much just like a 5-volt signal. And so taking
Okay.
that 5-volt signal and making it sound interesting into these, modulation amounts or modulation frequencies, what I was actually doing is just flipping the signal so it'll continue to apply some sort of CV manipulation, but I think what's happening here is it's actually hitting the base like minimum frequency that we like, and then kind of going in the opposite direction.
Okay.
It's crazy to be in that world. Like, well, I could speculate, and I even wrote the code, and I'm like, I'm not
Right.
100% sure. But yeah, so that's the dizygote. Just kind of a fun little oscillator. I think that's at 229 right now, available at Patchworks. If you're in the Seattle area, go check it out. I think they have it in the demo as well. So
Yeah. Well, this is yeah. It's like you mentioned kind of inspired a little bit by rings, but I'm actually like getting some Platts rings, and then just kind of almost like I know this isn't what this is, but like it sounds like a Platts rings like wavetable like combo, like the types of sounds that you can get out of it. Which and yeah, having that built-in envelope on it just like makes it so versatile and pretty small real estate wise too. So yeah, that's I'm
yeah.
because honestly, when I saw like I went to your page, just before I like to just look at stuff. The people that I'm talking to, I want to look at their stuff right before I'm chatting with them to
Mhm.
have it fresh in my mind. And I was like, I know Chris. I know Chris is like he has a lot of really crazy and wild out there ideas. So I'm like, what? Why an oscillator? Like an oscillator seems like a weird thing to choose to get into. And now that I have seen and heard it just now, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this totally makes sense. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's funky. I mean, it's one of those imperfect things still. Like someone might come back and say, "Hey, it doesn't hold pitch correctly." And it's like, well, I don't really care. I'm just gonna make
yeah,
weird percussive sounds with it anyway.
yeah. I
So,
I was just thinking, I want it as a drum voice. I think it'd
yeah,
be an
yeah,
awesome drum voice.
yeah. So it's been. I like it a lot. I'd say for anyone, it's kind of this funny world. I've made no demo videos for it whatsoever. I've just had it at a trade show or two now. So we'll see if that changes in the future. But I mean, with this design too, like 10 HP, some of my other thoughts are it's pretty easy to write firmware. It's way more annoying to make hardware. So I'm also
Yeah.
kind of debating like having this stereo oscillator set up, what other oscillators I'm going to force into this shape as well. So
Oh,
there
I
might be some
see.
other
Yeah.
subsequent releases that look identical to this, and some firmwares you can trade out that use all the same like buttons and LEDs, but probably different sounds. Still all digital, of course, but
Hmm.
I think there's a lot more future to this specific form factor that'll get fleshed out in the next couple of years. Just it's so easy to be like, I'll just write an alternative firmware for this and ship it, and not think about trying to sell anymore. Just thinking about what do I want in my actual case myself.
Yeah, I mean, like Qubit's been like doing that with like the Aurora. They
Yeah.
already released like another firmware for it, and I like switched that firmware, and I don't, and it's got like a USB drive in the front, so you can just like really easily switch it. And I know they're like the why am I blanking on the name? The Nebulae, I think, is like their big
Mhm.
like sampler. Like I'm pretty sure you could just like write whatever you want for that and just like make your own module out of it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
really know how the qubit stuff breaks down exactly. I mean, a lot of the modules I've been making thus far are purely digital and are based off the like Daisy seed from Electrosmith. And I
Hmm.
think that that is somehow associated with Qubit. Like maybe it's the same founders that
It
have made
is.
that
Yeah.
open source
Andrew.
platform.
Yeah. Andrew from Qubit. I believe that he created Daisy. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
a
did.
lot
He
of
told me
respect
on
for
this
them.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been a big fan of that stuff too.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah, just that alternative firmware world. Like I'm trying to think. I think Noise Engineering is another one of the big companies that ships a
Hmm.
modules. Like, wow, you can just change out the software for it, and we've written different softwares all for the same form factor.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Immutable,
know.
a lot of the mutable stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny world. Like they'll open source a lot of stuff, and it's like that's awesome. Like it's cool. You go write anything you feel like for that hardware and just reuse it. Avoid buying new stuff. I don't think I'll ever open source any of these exact programs, but I've been thinking about it for some of the hardware and stuff. Just like a hey, here, go use this Daisy, seed specific library extension, and be good to go writing your own custom software on this hardware. But that's probably still pretty far out. I think if I
Yeah.
start doing more releases for this oscillator form factor, that maybe that'll be one of the first potentials to go and make it so other people can write stuff for it too. But I
Well, I
don't
mean
know.
that yeah, that becomes like kind of a weird or like an interesting idea as a product is like, okay, yeah, I'll ship it with this firmware, so you will have this instrument, but it's also like I could see a lot of people buying it just so they could have the form factor to mess around with their own writing, and
Yeah,
I think that's just like a really cool, um, you know, feature to have on a product. Because like it's got to be weird too to be like as shitty as it is, we live in a capitalistic society, and if you want to really keep doing this and be able to have it self-sustaining, you do have to like sell the stuff, So if you like,
yeah,
like make one form factor and like everything you make, all the different firmwares can upload on it, then like you could be shooting yourself in the foot. But um, I don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
it's got to be a weird thing to be. I imagine you're constantly thinking about like all these different aspects and everything.
yeah. I don't think I have great answers for all of them. Like, I'm not going to claim Raw Yaw Media is a successful company. It's probably a company that just burns money, but has a good time doing it.
Mhm.
And so, like, some of these firmware ideas, like, realistically, what it means is I have a different oscillator that I want to use in a performance, and
Right, right.
uh, I will be happiest if I get it working on the hardware I made myself. So
Yeah.
that's more the point I'm at. But we'll see how it pans out. I mean, if you do want to get into programming things like I think the Daisy patch and it is pretty good. Like it's similar to size in this, and it's kind of a pare down of the Daisy patch that I think is 20 HP. So you can kind of live in that world of something a little smaller while still programming it yourself.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but too much talk on Daizogo. We'll see what happens in the future with it. We'll see if
Yeah.
it sells at all. But I'm gonna keep using it in my setup for sure.
Yeah, no, I like it sounds I'm now you have two modules that I'm like really excited about. I'm like, "Ooh, I want those." Let's check out this last one here.
Well, do you want to hear the monolith first? I'll just feed.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you've gotten to mess with it much, but so we got the Daizogo as a sound source. I'll just play like a simple sine wave, um, so you can hear that sine wave sequence pretty good.
Yep.
So monolith, it's got like this just standard reverb. We'll just turn it up and see what it sounds like. Just go all the way. Like I don't ever just turn it to like the knob all the way and just listen to that.
Yeah.
But I really like having like this DJ filter that can do like some high pass build up. I don't know if you can hear that pretty well. Versus other things that come in and just do, like, you can just sweep down to low frequencies.
Yeah.
And so I tried to make Monolith as something where you can just do like a wall of sound and let it ride, and it shouldn't really just explode on you. Kind of just really oversaturates and gets a bit gritty. But so that's just like the basic reverb sound. The other thing about Monolith that's pretty popular is that it actually does this FM processing too. So I'll turn that on now.
Oh wow.
So you can hear that pretty clear, right? It's a little quiet on my end. So.
Yeah, you could. I think with the sine wave going in, it's a little quieter, so you could probably turn your mixer up a little bit.
Can you hear the square wave better?
Yeah, there we go.
So one thing that's cool about this, when you think about FM synthesis with Monolith, what I really like about it is since it's a digital like FM processor, I can actually clock sync it. And so right now we're just doing some square wave modulation, but it's in time, and so it's a pretty big like LFO territory modulation. And so you get like this kind of dance that sounds more like a delay of actually like the higher end pitch shift versus the lower end.
Yeah.
But this actually supports shapes other than square. Like there's some triangle that should feel a bit more continuous.
Oh, nice.
And we'll see what it sounds like if I just turn on like a basic kick, I guess. Because it was more like, hey, can I get like these FM modulation sounds to actually be in time? So I'm going to kick and see the sounds. Can you hear that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Whoa. Holy shit. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, and for people using this, like it has an on and off toggle, so you can hear it kind of fades between like this is the FM sound versus the original clean sound.
Okay.
It's a pretty shocking difference when you listen to it. That
yeah,
way.
Totally.
Like, hey, I was just making something that sounded crazy out of something that sounded like a sequencer that back to the FM.
Wow.
Like these really low sweeping FM sounds are pretty sick for like a delay line or things that do more like just noodling sounds, because that's like a triangle shaped FM moderator, but we'll move even to more like sine wave, and it's just like I'll turn off the drum too.
And that's quantizable, right? Like you can turn quantization on and off on that FM. Is that right?
Yeah. So, like the maximum modulation amount is kind of like a +2 octave, down 2 octave shift. Then quantized, you can pick like a 1 octave shift, or then getting more into like microtonal areas.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear like that gradual kind of fluttering more than? I'll bring it to modulation frequency.
Wow. And all of these knobs have CVNs, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So all these are manipulatable. I'll call out that I'm actually working on a second firmware for this. Not like the drastically changing one, but one that cleans up some of the CDN filtering just for better modulation feel. So if you have one of the monoliths, or if you end up buying one, keep an eye out, because I'll probably push some sort of second updated firmware just as I play with this more and find the sweet spots I think would be cooler to share, that they'll just end up in there. But yeah, so this is kind of like the gist of that modulation amount. You can also turn off like the quantizing, like you were asking about, for like just like continuous sweep.
You're right. It really does get into like a delay, almost like a delay kind of like feel when it's mixed with that reverb like that.
It's crazy how too with like a square shape, um, it just feels like you're doing clean changes. Whereas with like the sine triangle, it sounds like you're making something entirely new, or that sweeping. Like who knows if that's staying in key at all? Probably not. But having like those reference points of like the +2 octave versus down 2 octave kind of shifting is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I was saying, like I'll just turn this on. I'll like turn on
Whoa.
the high pass all on its own, and just do like a
Yeah.
full reverb build, and I'll just let this run in my house for hours at a time. Like my
Yeah.
girlfriend has to think I'm crazy at this point because this is just what's coming out of our speakers in the living room 24/7. It's just kind of like these washed out ambient sounds that, like out of context, you're like, why the hell does your house sound like this? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I finally came up with the sound effects to my life.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the monolith. I mean, we haven't really messed a ton with like audio rate modulation, which can sound funky.
Oh wow. It's almost like robot voicey, kind of like Formant almost.
Yeah, and so this actually has like a V oct in for that frequency amount too, so you can do like traditional FM synthesis V oct tracking for that modulator signal and do like performances just in the FM modulation, which is pretty sick. Um,
Awesome.
But again, it's like back to the other thing about this too is I was thinking, I didn't know why I didn't see very many digital effects that were kind of like FM operators. Probably because the actual algorithm I'm using is not great, but it's like I've never really seen that in an effect. So like feeding vocals to this, you see how you get real crazy sounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was one other reason to release the monolith. Is like, well, I want a standalone FM operator for just anything because I'm lucky enough to have like a deck of Extreme, and I'll feed it through this. Like I did a quad show where I had 2 monoliths for the front and back of the room, and you can really just run wild with like weird, like reverb pre-delays and FM modulation in front of you versus behind you and stuff. And it sounds really cool.
Yeah. I want to run a guitar through it.
Yeah, that's another one of the favorites. Like I've got an acoustic guitar where if you get into this territory of like the clean square wave octave shifting, it just sounds wild.
I imagine you could like make it sound like you're doing some really crazy like finger tapping or something.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I really like having this on and off. Like I was thinking I could get like a floor switch CD control to actually just kick in between these effects and stuff. And you can imagine like a full guitar rave just excited to use this. Almost with the dies I go a little bit more too. That's the monolith FM processing on top of the Zygo.
Wow.
We'll turn up the reverb a bit more on the monolith. And we'll pick it more high. And so one other thing that's been a point of contention with different people I talk to is we have this blend knob. But it's kind of cool because when you've got like this FM processing on, you can actually fade back to your clean signal in the mix. And so sometimes when that FM processing is going on in the background, it just feels like a shimmer and you don't even realize how crazy it is if you just listen to it like with the full clean signal on top. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of the monolith and the Zygo. These are kind of like sounds that I've gotten out of it, sounds that I really enjoyed. It's a little quiet on my end, so I don't know if it's clipped a ton or if it's out.
No, I'm like I'm vibing on it right now. I feel like what you have going right now is something that I could leave playing in my house while I'm like doing the dishes and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so now if you want to see something, you want to hear crazy. The Taurus is like an addition to this that's just like, I don't know what's going on anymore. But I'll start actually recording some of this in a second and just show you like some of the Taurus sounds. So we've got kind of a clean signal going in. I did like a really fast 16 sample of that. I'll bring in that sampling into the mix. So what's cool now is there's like this doubling effect, maybe you can kind of hear to an extent of like, hey, the recorded signal, it's not perfect relative to the actually incoming one that's the same still, but it's because you can do harmonic stuff.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
doing like actual clock synced recutting kind of thing, where then you can do like 2 times playback speed or
Whoa.
and so that's more like, hey, can you just do like a harmonic overlay of the sound, right?
Uh-huh.
And so now you've got this knob to do like a play around with it. And the thing that's crazy is each one of these harmonics, right? It has a reset period. And so Taurus has tons of clocks out. Like it's got the general global clock out, it's got the sequence reset out, and it's also got this harmonic out. So like you can have harmonics drive drum sounds and stuff and actually be mapped to like your recording
Whoa.
playback and things. Um, but you can kind of hear like the example there. And I like this too because then you can come back and do like different filtering in your input signal. Like let's just bring in like a high pass reverb sound on top of that. But yeah, so the other thing with this Taurus is you like right now it's kind of hard to tell, but we've got like these 16 steps sequence. The other thing that I was really interested in with it is doing like different octave shifting of those sequences. So I'm just gonna kick it over to the recorded sequence for now. You can kind of hear it. There's that recorded sequence.
Uh-huh.
Again, can mess with like harmonic amounts of it.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's cool about it is you can actually do like cut this playback speed in half or like 2 times
Whoa.
slower. And so the key to this is like I've got this sequencer's global clock going in, and it's like, hey, I want to do like octave shifts of this playback live, but I still want it to stay in time. And so that's kind of what this has been doing. Again, it might be good for me to bring like a kick in just to. So you hear how it's still kind of in time. And that's kind of like closer to what the original was, because it's doubling a bunch of those sounds and stuff. Or you can do like 2x faster.
Oh my god. Holy shit, wow.
It lets you do really complex things too, because sometimes you want to do like like 3 times as fast harmonic kind of speed, and you can get triplets out of it, and you can build these really crazy like rhythms with them and stuff.
Okay. Is there a gate in to switch between the time?
Yeah, so right now it's got a gate in to take a clock. It doesn't have gate ins for these oct buttons because it's kind of a weird cueing where it feels easier to do since you want it to stay in time. It doesn't snap those pitch shifts continuously. It's kind of like on the note, it'll update. And so that's like a manual effort. But like the harmonica CBN too to do like different effects. So we could actually have like a.
I want this really bad.
Yeah, so it's been this like interesting take of like, okay, if I want to record a bunch of stuff, like what do I actually do with it, like for the sample cut up, and like how much of that could I do live instead, like having a bunch of playback speeds, or like being able to toggle reverse and have it sound like tape skipping is kind of what I was seeking out with that and stuff, of just like, hey, we're gonna send you a clock source, good luck keeping up with it, because I think you're listening to this right now with like the harmonic modulation, but you can kind of hear how it's like it's in sync still with the drums to an extent, right?
Yeah.
We'll bring back
I mean, it all sounds like it's been relatively in sync, but like any out of syncness is almost like that cool, like glitchy, like or not glitchy, but like kind of Jay Dilla fly low, like kind of like stuttery, like kind of coming in and out of time feel.
Yeah, it's funny too because like some of the underlying clock stuff would be like, oh, I wish that the software responded better, but then you listen to it and you're like, I'm kind of happy that it's skipping or doing stuff.
No.
I should fix some of this problems.
I'm going to send I'm gonna send Daedalus a message after this and say, you need to check this stuff out because I think you would really like it. Especially Taurus, like, I'm always looking for like new types of, like, I feel like it's a sampler effect combo, and that's like how Morphogene is a little bit that, like, that's like my favorite type of module.
Yeah, definitely. like I think the morphage is going to be substantially different in terms of like becoming a sound source, having like the aux control over what you play back and stuff. Whereas this one is just more of like, hey, if you had a delay that you like froze and then messed with, what would it sound like?
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Definitely wasn't comparing it to morphaging. Just more like I just like stuff that is like kind of in that realm of like I'm putting a sound into it and I'm going to just like get something totally different out of it. And like, yeah, that's
yeah,
my favorite.
definitely.
That's my jam.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is like record guitar into this and then just like, reverse all of it and just see what it sounds like. Because
Mm-hmm.
another thing that's been entertaining is this has like a tap tempo clock. So if
Oh,
it's actually
nice.
pretty good for queuing, like if you took this sequencer clock in out and you wanted to just tap in a song, you kind of like tap it in and then actually do like recording. Like I'll cut things off Spotify and just listen to it from time to
Uh
time.
huh.
And I've
Oh,
had some like
nice.
really funny like overdub looping recordings of like country music, just like hitting that chorus perfectly right, but then way down
Uh
tuning
huh.
the vocals and stuff. And it, it's just fun to mess with for sure. Like it's one of those things that's like it's weird in its own world and it doesn't do everything 100% correctly, but it does like 70% what I intend and maybe 30% of
Yeah.
what I don't, and that makes it nice.
And that, yeah, and that percentage that you're not intending is sometimes like the sweetest spot.
Yeah,
Happy
yeah. So this one
accidents.
is still kind of underway. Like the harmonic stuff all feels real good. The pattern chaining feels a bit clunky still, needs some more love, but I don't know. I
I'm
really
very
like just
excited
having this
to check
as
it out.
something running in the background. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Aspirations for 2023.
Right? Yeah. I have big aspirations as well. Maybe you and I should be our accountability buddies.
That sounds perfect. I'm looking forward
um
to seeing that pop up of the module, music, beer space in Tacoma next week.
oh my
So
god, that's so far away. Um well, Chris, I'm so excited about these modules. I'm dead serious. I've heard a little bit of the monolith, so I knew that was cool. Dizygo, like that, like blew my mind a little bit, and then Taurus, I cannot wait to see like the finished version of that. Like that seems like something that I really really could use in my kit. Um, so yeah, fucking a man. Is there anything you
yeah,
out from the modular mountaintops before we sign out here?
uh, just anti VCAs, I guess. That's what I'll be known for in the
I
community.
love it. I
He's
love
just a
it.
guy that hates VCAs. Oh, no, I don't. I don't think I have anything to call out. I think any plugs on upcoming shows. I don't think I have any upcoming shows, but I'd say folks, if they're not checking out Basement State currently and are in Seattle, keep an eye on them because they do a lot of random like phone call in day of events that you can only kind of get the location through either knowing someone or calling a hotline they have to set up. So
Oh my
keep
god,
an eye
that's
out for
amazing.
Basement State shows. And I'm thinking, other than that, I think there's a show December 7th maybe for Connie in Accuracy. Is that right? Man, I gotta get better at show plugs. I gotta
Well,
think about what else.
send me the links and I'll throw them in the show description.
Sounds good. Oh yeah,
Um,
and then the other thing's always coming up: the modular, like EasyBot shows for the Tuesdays at the arcade. I
oh
think I'll go to
right,
the one
yeah.
this upcoming week. So if people are trying to see me tomorrow, even though this podcast comes out probably in a week, good luck. I hope you hear about this. Oh,
uh, well, I really appreciate your time today. Um, yeah, and don't forget to check out all of Raw Yaw stuff online. Again, link in the show description. But yeah, thanks for joining us.
cool. Thanks for having me. It's nice. I feel
Absolutely.
like I listen to your podcast a lot nowadays. It's been the most consistent one, and I'm going to give it credit for that.
All right. Well, thank you. That was one of my goals going into it. Everybody's like, can't you just do it every other week or like once a month? And I'm like, absolutely not, because I listen to podcasts every week and I want my favorite podcast to come out every week. So I think I've only missed like maybe 3 or 4 weeks total over the last 5 years.
Yeah,
So
that's impressive. Yeah.
Thanks.
You know, I feel like you talk sometimes about the criticism you get for putting this on, but fuck them, you know? Like, there's just people doing things and there's people speculating, and you're one of the folks doing things. So I got a lot of respect for you.
Thanks, man. I really, really appreciate that.
Cool.
All right, now into the fun, fun for me, the bonus Patreon stuff. I don't want to put any, especially if I'm talking to if I'm talking to an artist or a manufacturer who's like promoting something new, I'm not going to put that behind the paywall. So I figured what I want to do is just ask random, funny, weird, philosophical questions to my guests.
For sure.
So I have 3 questions, and I'm going to stick with these same 3 questions, I think, for a while, because you're going to get such wildly different answers. So I talked with Dan Green from 4MS just a few hours ago today, and he answered these very questions. So you'll be able to like hear both. But the first question is, does the vastness of space impact the way you perceive yourself? That's our show. Thank you for coming back to Podular Modcast. Don't forget that I am taking submissions for holiday music. You can send your WAV files to podmodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to Patchworks for their continued support of Podular Modcast. Thank you to After Later Audio for their continued support of Podular Modcast. Thank you to Novation for this summit. This is pretty sweet. I'm telling you, I love this thing. I'm having so much fun. And it's really funny too, is it's so obvious. And I've had this realization, or this revealed to me multiple times since getting into modular, but you spend so much time in modular trying to build out big tracks and stuff. When you get a nice intuitive desktop synth that you don't have to use patch cables, and you can just like instantly start making music, it's so nice, and it's such a nice burst for my creativity. So yeah, I'm really excited to have what is definitely the nicest piece, like single piece of electronic gear I think I've ever owned. Because it's all individual modules that make up the system. So obviously my Needham case full of all these modules is the nicest thing I've ever owned. But just as a one piece of gear, this might be nicer than any guitar I've ever owned too. Yeah, I love it. Where was I? I would really appreciate it if you would jump on the old Patreon and support the show. You can get the answer to, you can get Chris's answer to the philosophical questions. And I've already put up Dan Green's bonus episode and Greg Markle from Recovery Effects bonus episode. And right now they're just living on YouTube, because that seems to be the best way to have it be private, and where I can share a link to where the Patreon subscribers can get access to it. I don't want to do private links on my my podcast platform, only because there's only so much storage I can do, and I just recently had to upgrade because I've got over 200 episodes, and if I do the bonus episodes there, then I will be essentially doubling what I need to put up there every week. So maybe I'll get a SoundCloud going, because I know not everybody's super into YouTube, and if you don't have YouTube like Prime or whatever it is, Premium, you can't play it with your screen off, so that is kind of annoying. So yeah, maybe I'll get a SoundCloud going there. Thank you to Board Brain. Please check out the Injector and the EQ5. And what else do I got? I got the Exchanger as well, which is specifically made for getting your line level stuff to Euro levels. And then there are also 2 channels where you can get either a stereo signal or 2 mono signals from Euro to line level. So it's a really nice way to interface something like the Novation Summit, or your Mystic, or your Strega, or your Soma Enter, or whatever you want. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to Podular Modcast. If you're one of those people who likes to put positivity out into the universe, I would appreciate if you would reach out to old universe herself and put some nice thoughts out there for my mom. I'm hoping that she's going to be okay, but yeah, it's scary. I hope I didn't bring anybody down, but I just like to share with you. All right, that's it for this week. Until next week, this week's secret word to put on the Instagram post about this episode is let's find a cool word on the synth here. Well, these are Oxford oscillators. Let's just do Oxford oscillator. That's pretty fun. Okay, I'm done. I'm done rambling. Until next week.